Dag sê en hartlik welkom by Regheid met Robinson hier op Litnet. Terwyl verbruikers en sakeondernemings worstel om met beperkte krag 'n bestaan te maak, neem die druk toe op Eskom en die regering om die stremmende uitwerking van fase 6 beurtkrag te verlig. Daarbey het die energiereguleerder NERSA kwai tariefverhogings vir Eskom goedgekeur van 18,65% vanjaar en 12,74% aanstaande jaar. Verskeie hofsaake en betogings is daaroor begin. Diegene wat dit kan bekostig om sonpanele te installeer, doen dit al hoe meer. Die Metro Kaapstad het reeds 'n jaar wat gelede besluit, hy gaan nie wag tot Eskom en die regering die situasie verlig nie. Hy gaan self inspring met die hulp van die private sektor om eie krag op te wek en onafhanklik te word. Ons gas is die burgemeester van Kaapstad, Geordin Hill-Lewis. Welkom. What is the present situation concerning your plan for the future?
Thank you very much, Freek. It's a pleasure to be with you. Our plan, which we set out soon after I was elected at the beginning of last year, was to stop load shedding in Cape Town within the next 4 years. There is no overnight silver bullet to load shedding. You have to build new generating capacity, and that takes time. But we want to reduce our reliance on Eskom as quickly as possible. We immediately went out to market for the first 200 megawatts of renewable power, independent power producers' renewable power. We went out to market for what we call demand control, which also allows us to save more load shedding. And we shifted policy significantly on allowing businesses to generate their own power through solar power and sell back to the city and to be paid cash for those sales. And we've shifted that policy, and we're also extending that policy shift as well to residences this year. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll also go back to market for a much bigger, probably 500 to 700 megawatts of renewable power. And so as these projects start to come online, as they start to be constructed and connected to our city grid, we will be able to protect residents from more and more stages of load shedding until eventually we will say goodbye to load shedding in Cape Town. That is our ambition, that is our mission, our obsession, and we will do it in the next 2 to 3 years.
So you are on schedule?
We are on schedule. We are absolutely on schedule. And we are just looking for opportunities always, of course, to concertina that schedule, to speed it up even further. And where there are chances to do so, we'll absolutely do that. But ultimately, we are on schedule.
Generally, the sticky point is the costs. Are you quite happy with what you've achieved so far with the money available?
Yes, so far the prices that we are getting are excellent, and in fact, mostly cheaper than Eskom, actually. The one big unknown quantity is the cost of storage. We have not yet bought any storage major batteries. We've bought some small batteries, but no major utility scale batteries. And I think there you will see a significant premium over the Eskom cost. But frankly, I think we are at the point in South Africa where most people would be very happy to pay a small premium if it meant that we could end load shedding. But we'll see exactly what those are when the bids come in. And then we can decide whether they are either affordable or not affordable for the public.
In one sense, you have an advantage because you have the Steenbras hydro plant.
At the moment, we are using Steenbras very effectively to protect against at least one stage of load shedding and sometimes quite often 2 stages of load shedding. And the plant is extremely well run. It's very reliable. We maintain it well. So it's working extremely well for us. We're currently doing a study now to see what it would cost to extend the capacity of the lower dam. Remember, in very simple terms, a hydroelectric plant works by letting water run from the upper dam to the lower dam over some generators, some turbines. And so really the thing that limits our capacity at Steenbras is the size of the lower dam. Once the lower dam is full, you can't generate any more electricity. So we're looking at the cost of extending that lower dam and building a bigger dam. But of course, that is a very big engineering project, a very expensive engineering project. So that is not in our short-term to medium-term plans for beating load shedding. That would have to be a medium to long-term plan for generating more power in the city. But we are currently busy now with a study of what it would actually cost us to extend that dam.
The general problem in government is maintenance. Are you also on a good level in terms of the maintenance of Steenbras?
That's the key point there, Freek. You know, the Steenbras is an old power station. It's actually older than some of the power stations that Eskom has, which are now broken down. The difference is all about maintenance. Steenbras is beautifully maintained. It is a wonderful facility. I invite you to come and visit it with me when you are next here. It is working like a well-oiled classic old car, and it delivers for the public very, very reliably. The difference with Eskom's generation fleet, all of those power stations, which are also 40, 50 years old, is that they are all badly maintained and therefore are now breaking.
We were all surprised when the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, last year announced that the ceiling was lifted for producers to actually produce megawatts to the grid. That ceiling was 100, but I see you have other players who are actually going to bid for higher than that. Is there going to be a clash? Is there going to be a problem?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, there seems to be a recognition at least from the president in words that some of these limits and restrictions are just nonsense and totally unnecessary and unhelpful. Of course, the restrictions were lifted far too late. So many of the projects that were already being bid and under construction were all small. But now that it is lifted in our future procurement rounds, we can go bigger.
Can you give the assurance that you are basically free to do what you want and nobody is going to stop you or phone you at night and say, I'm Minister so-and-so, stop this nonsense?
They can very well try, but I don't care. We are pressing forward to stop load shedding. That is our obsession. Of course, we must comply with the law in terms of procurement, and procurement in government does take too long for my liking. But certainly, there is no minister that could try to stop us from buying power as much as we want and as quickly as we can.
Well, talking about the government, what is the red tape that you have to deal with in actually getting some slower progress?
Yeah, the procurement red tape is extremely onerous and cumbersome. It takes very long to procure things in the state. So, we would have liked to have this second call for bids for 500 or more, maybe 700 megawatts of power out already. But just the process to design that tender and to get all of the specifications exactly right, because if your specs are even slightly out and someone appeals on that basis at a later stage, you have to start the entire process all over again. So, that just to get the specs right on this has taken about 6 months. So it's a very onerous process, and that is probably the biggest factor that slows down the procurement of new power. But we, as I said, every opportunity we can to speed it up, we will do that.
Are there legal restrictions that you know of?
Most of them, as I say, have now been removed. Too late. They were only removed late last year when we had our previous stage 6 crisis. But most of them have now been removed. We still, part of the problem in South Africa is that there's far too much gray area. So still, depending on who you speak to in the national government, they will say that we still need something called Section 34 determination, which is just a fancy or a bureaucratic name for the permission of the Department of Mineral Resources to buy our own power. Now, we have said, frankly, we are not asking for Section 34 determination. We are pressing ahead, and if someone objects, they must try and stop us. But it's frustrating that there has to be so much gray area. These things should be crystal clear.
And what do you hear from other cities or metros and so on? Do they phone you? Do they ask for some advice? Do you think they're looking at what you're doing and they're going to follow your suit as well?
Oh yes, I think the race is on, and I'm pleased about it. I think there's some healthy, good competition in South African cities now to buy power as quickly as possible. Lots of the cities have started programs. They have started slightly after us, and they have been phoning us for advice. But we share everything. All of our stuff is public. It's not about. We want South Africa to succeed. I really hope that that all of our cities can end load shedding as quickly as possible. So, but now I often use this to motivate our team. The race is on. There's no way that we can allow Durban or Joburg or any other city in South Africa to beat us. We got to buy power as quickly as we can.
Well, if they follow your example, what is going to happen to Eskom?
Hopefully, it will be totally irrelevant in a few years and derelict and broken. But it won't be thanks to us. I promise you, it will be thanks to what they have done to themselves. If Eskom was delivering the service, there would be no need for us to do any of this. We would happily pay Eskom and get the reliable service for many years to come, for many decades to come. But the fact is, Eskom has failed to deliver on its basic mandate. It is not able to deliver the service that it exists to deliver. And so we are making our own plans. And I think that in the years ahead, in probably a decade's time, there will be no load shedding, not because of Eskom, but because so many people have made their own plans, and so many towns and cities have made their own plans that actually Eskom becomes irrelevant. And largely, I think Eskom will leave the business of generating power altogether. Eskom's future is not in generating power because it's not very good at it. Eskom's future is just on moving power around the country using its transmission network, which is very difficult for anyone else to compete with. Because to build that transmission network is, Eskom has built it over 100 years. So that's their future business. They must leave generating power to independent power producers.
But billions will go to waste then.
Many, many hundreds of billions will go to waste and already have gone to waste. If you look at the total of what the public, you and I and everyone watching, have paid to Eskom in the form of bailouts and higher tariffs and more bailouts and debt over the last decade, it's hundreds of billions. We've spent, what is it now, somewhere around 300 billion rand building those two enormous new power stations, neither of which work. They still don't work, and they are brand new enormous power stations. So there's no doubt that Eskom has wasted hundreds of billions of rands and will waste many, many more billions in the years ahead.
Do you think there's some political motive behind all the trouble that you've experienced so far in terms of the red tape and so on, that there might be ideological differences between yourself and the minister, who of course is a communist and who's probably not keen on private sector becoming more involved?
Yeah. Yes, I think that is definitely the reason why it took so long to lift those 100 megawatt limits and deal with some of the procurement red tape and so on. It's because the ANC was desperately clinging to this idea that there should only be one state provider of every basic service in South Africa, whether it be trains or electricity and so on. And this idea that actually the state doesn't need to do these things, the state is not very good at doing these things. These services are provided by companies around the world every day, very effectively, very efficiently, very cheaply. That idea, they've had to come to terms with that reality. And that is an ideological wake-up call for the ANC. But eventually you have to stop arguing with reality, and that is where the ANC is slowly, but far too slowly for South Africa's good. That is where the ANC is getting to. They are getting to that point in SAA where they realize the state cannot run an airline and they must get rid of it. They are rapidly getting to that point in Eskom. I hope soon that they will get to that point for the train service as well, and let other people run the train service who actually can run it. I hope they will get to that point with our harbors because they are absolutely crucial for our country's economy. But yes, eventually you have to stop arguing with reality.
Do you believe that it's possible to be totally independent?
From Eskom.
Yes.
You have to have what is called base load factor. And that is very difficult for renewable energy to provide because, for a simple reason, the sun is not always shining and the wind is not always blowing. So you've got to have some form of base load factor. And so for a long time still, at least the next decade, I think coal power and nuclear power, those power stations will still play a very important part of South Africa's energy mix. But in the future, there's no reason why independent power producers, independent companies can't provide base load factor. And so, yes, if you are talking about the long term, I would say it's absolutely possible to be totally independent from Eskom in the long term. But for our purposes, the next 3 years, let's say, our aim is to stop load shedding, that portion that Eskom is not able to provide, that top up portion, that gap, and then to move from there.
Very much appreciated and good luck. We hope you can be the city of light.
That is absolutely our hope. Thank you so much. An honor to speak to you.